Hi everyone, I'm Bianca.
And I'm Rosina, and welcome back to
Twins in Stitches.
We have a knitting tutorial for you all.
Today you'll be learning how to knit, and we'll walk through how to do knit stitch, purl stitch, cast on, cast off. So all the basics you'll need to know. So grab your needles and yarn and let's get started.
To start, we're going to speak about what equipment you need to knit. When you start knitting, you'll just need two things. One is a pair of needles. So you obviously use two of these, and you hold one in your right hand and one in your left hand. And then you need a ball of yarn. This is the one I have. Now, as you can see, my needles say 4mm, and to know what needle size you use with yarn, you read the package. And here it says, there you go, 4mm. The USA 6 is just US needle size, but here 4mm. Perfect. So we're going to remove this here and we can start working. Once you have your equipment, the first thing you have to know is how do you hold your needles. As there are two needles, you place one in your right hand and one in your left hand. To hold the needle, you put your 4 fingers minus your thumb around, and then your thumb holds above here. And then the index finger and thumb kind of pinch together. So 4 fingers around, thumb and index pinch. And you always want to hold near the top. Perfect. To start your project, grab your yarn. The yarn end is usually right in the middle, so you can just pull it out. I'm using this nice purple colour. So in order to get the yarn onto the needles, we have to make something called a slip knot. A slip knot is simply a knot. To form a slip knot, you grab the thread and loop it like this. So you basically half it and put the rest on your fingers. Now you hold the bottom secure with your index and middle finger. So now you've basically got a little loop. Now you insert your thumb and index finger of your right hand and also the bottom hands here. And then you twist both simultaneously and grab the thread. Now I'm going to do that one more time. You grab your yarn with leaving about a 10cm end. You grab underneath. You pinch it with both your fingers up here. You kind of separate with your with your index and thumb. And then you twist and grab. Great. Now once you've done this, we are going to put this on the needle. Now we're going to pull both ends and we're ready to start. And you want to pull that so that it's the same diameter of your needle. Now just for clarity, this end here that is still connected to the ball is called the working end, and this one which is not is called the tail end. Now I'm going to show you how to knit a square. So we are going to choose a certain amount of stitches to cast on. With knitting, all the stitches always remain on the needles. So we're going to start by casting on about 15 stitches to start. So we're going to cast on 15 stitches. To cast on, we put our hand in the same formation as before. However, now we can pinch the stitch we just made. The other hand is not currently holding the needle, but holding the working thread. We hold the working thread with our last 3 needles, and then we basically have the thumb and index finger disposable. Now, we are going to wrap the working thread around the index finger. Again, these 3 wrapped round, this one, wrap. And now with the needle on the right hand, we are going to scoop up that thread and pull. And as you can see, we've got 2 little loops, 2 stitches. To know you've done it correctly, there'll be the thread kind of coming round and out of this. So now we hold the thread with these 3 fingers, we wrap the yarn around the index finger, and we scoop it up with the needle. So I'm going to bring the working thread over the index finger and then put the needle in from underneath here. Again, around and up. Around and up. Again, wrapping it around the index finger and up. Now we're going to do 15 of these. So to count how many stitches we have, it's very simple. We just count how many stitches are on the needle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we need 8 more. Now you want to do this pretty close to each other. If you do it with such a big gap like this, and you have a stitch here, you don't want that. So you can pull that tight, but just make sure all the stitches are next to each other. So in knitting, all the stitches you have left to knit stay on the left hand and on the left needle. This is for someone who knits right-handed. So these stitches we have yet to knit, and the stitches we have knit and are currently, knitting is on the right needle. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the stitches in the formation I previously showed you. So these 4 fingers under, and we're pinching the top. So in knitting, the right needle is basically going into all the stitches on the left hand. So what we're going to do is we're first going to start with a purl stitch. So to start, we have to insert the right needle through the first stitch. To do this, as you can see, the stitch is basically just wrapped around the needle like this. We have to go through this first layer, not the back, but the front for a purl stitch. So we hold the needles in the formation and we insert this needle through the front of stitch 1. Great. Now we pull tight. So the working yarn is here. And we pull this tight. Now what we're going to do is we are going to bring the working yarn and we're going to wrap it around the right needle, like so. So we wrap it over the right needle. So this is basically anti-clockwise. Not clockwise like this, but anti-clockwise like this. Once we've wrapped it round, we pull it nice and taut. Once this is tight, we're going to continue holding the right needle in the same formation, but now what we're going to do is we are going to hold the working yarn as well when it's pinched between the thumb and index finger. So we pull that taut, and then we use our left thumb to help glide the right needle out, and as you can see there's a hole there. We pull the right needle off through that hole. Perfect. So to do that again, we bring the right needle through the front of the left stitch, and you hold that in place with your left thumb like this. So you can't actually really see the cross because your left thumb is covering it. And then we grab the working yarn on the right, we wrap it around anti-clockwise, around the right needle at the front, and then we bring the stitch out. So I want to reiterate that we're not bringing the whole thing off like this. That's wrong. And we are not bringing it through here. That is wrong. The stitch has a hole in the middle. We're bringing the right needle out through that hole. Here. Great. Again, on the front of a stitch on the left needle, grab the yarn, wrap it anti-clockwise around the front needle, which is the right one, and then we use the left thumb to push the needle out, through and off. Now as we can see, we have 4 stitches, and we can see a difference because already these have these loops here which show they've been knitted. So this is purl stitch. So we basically just do this for the rest of the row. Around and out. Right needle in, around and out. Now as we get to the last stitch, this is the exact same as what we've been doing. We insert through the front. Now obviously we don't have any stitches here, but that doesn't change what we do. We bring the working thread round anti-clockwise of the front needle, and then we push needle out through the hole and we release the stitch on the left needle. Great. So remember I said that the stitches we've knit are on the right and the ones we have yet to knit are on the left. This is obviously true. Here we've knitted these and we were knitting, and on the left were the needles we had to knit. So that is row 1. Amazing. Now to knit row 2, what we're going to do is we flip our work round. So the right needle is always the one kind of doing the knitting, and the left one is the one that has the stitches on. And obviously every row the needles move from this needle to this one, then from this one to that one. So we're going to go again. The first stitch and last stitch are exactly like the others. You're just going to bring the needle through the front of that. Now here we have 2 ends. However, as you remember, one is the tail end and one is the working thread. So the tail end you can kind of grab and just move aside and make sure not to use that. And you want to use the one that's connected to the ball of yarn. So we insert and then we pull the working thread around the needle, and then we, here through the hole, bring it out and off. Great. Now we do the same again, around, up and off. Right needle through the front of the left stitch, working thread around the front needle anti-clockwise, and then you can either use your thumb to push it or just kind of pull it with your hand, the needle, and bring it out through this gap. Great. Now I'm just going to do a few rows of this because this is really nice and a really nice stitch. So I will continue and I'll meet you when I get to the end of this row. So as we get to the last stitch, insert right needle through left stitch, yarn round, out and off. So here's what it's looking like. As we can see, the stitches are looking lovely, and we've already added, because before we actually didn't really have any of this kind of burgundy bit at the bottom. So it's already growing, and so we can just continue as the same, put the needle in through that stitch, yarn over and around, up and out. And you can just skip back if you need a reminder, and I'll meet you once I do that. Great. So now I've finished these couple of rows. This is what it's looking like, nice and stretchy. And what we're going to do is we are going to finish off the piece. But before we do that, I just want to show you how you can kind of count rows. When you do all purl stitch, you can see that there are just clear defined rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this here together, this line counts as a row. This is another one because stitches kind of interweave. So that's how it goes. So now I'm going to show you how you finish off a piece. To finish off a piece, you cast off. Now casting off actually uses skills that we've previously learnt. It involves knitting 2 stitches individually and then pulling the first stitch over the second. So let me show you. So you insert the right needle through the front of the left stitch. You grab the yarn and wrap it around that needle, anti-clockwise again. And now you bring the stitch out. Now you knit another one, like we've been previously doing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull that first stitch over the second. So with the left needle, we grab the first stitch through the front, through the front, and now we bring the stitches to the top, and we're going to hold stitch 1 in place with your finger or your nail, and then you pull this stitch, stitch 1 over stitch 2, and glide it off like that. We'll do that again. So we knit 1, and we pull stitch 1 over stitch 2. We do this by inserting the left needle through the bottom and the front of stitch 1, And then you can pull the working yarn taut to make this smaller. It's easier to pull stitch 1 over stitch 2. And we're just going to continue. Knit 1. So on your right needle, you either only have 1 or 2 stitches. So when you pull first stitch over the second. Great. I do it with a needle, like I pull it over with the needle because it's easier. If you want, you can always just grab stitch 1 with your hand and pull it over, like so. But I prefer the needle. It's just a bit easier. Now we're going to continue, and as you can see, that is already finishing off. Because obviously with knitting, because we work all the stitches, we have to like actually finish it off in a proper way, unlike crochet. So we knit, stitch, and then we bring stitch 1 over stitch 2. So now that we've gotten to the last stitch, we're just going to insert the right needle through that stitch, through the front of the left stitch. Same again and over. And now as you can see, we've got 2 stitches there, but we just do the same. I think sometimes people are thrown off by the first and last stitch, but just treat it like every other stitch. So now we're going to pull stitch 1 over stitch 2. Great. So this is what you have so far, and you have this tail end. What we're going to do, because we finish, we're going to grab some scissors and cut some thread. And we're just going to cut about a 10 centimeter excess. Now, using the needle, we're going to pull up and form a bigger loop. You can put 2 fingers in, your thumb and index finger, grab the thread and pull into a knot. So now you have your first piece of knitting done. Super lovely, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So now I'm going to show you how to do a knit stitch, because this was a purl stitch. So for the second stitch in knitting, which is called the knit stitch, we start in the exact same way as a purl stitch. We cast on our amount of stitches. I casted on 15, and we started with a slip knot. So what we're going to do is we're going to do knit stitch. Now what you have to remember, purl stitch happens, in purl stitch, everything happens on the front. Knit stitch, everything happens on the back. So what we're going to do, you hold the needles in the same formation as before, and we're going to insert the right needle through the front to the back of a knit stitch. So with purl stitch, we're still kind of going through this first, that front loop, but we're bringing it forward. Here, we're going through the front and bringing it back. And the main difference here is that the right needle is at the back. The right needle is behind the left needle. In purl stitch, the right needle is in front of. So knit stitch, there. Great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hold the yarn taut, same as before. You just hold it and twist it. Sorry, not twist it, you just hold it and pull it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull that yarn and wrap it anti-clockwise around the right needle. So always the right needle. Okay, so this is the one that you're kind of, which is going to have your knitted stitches. So we pull this and wrap it anti-clockwise around that back needle. Great. And now what we do is we push the needle down until you get to this gap, and we bring the needle through the hole and off. Similar motion to purl stitch. So again, from here, from the front to the back, we wrap the yarn around the back needle, and then we push, and basically you want to get it out of this hole here. That little gap, you want to get it out of there. We push and bring it out of here. Done. Again, through to the back, yarn over anti-clockwise, and then we push out and through. Nice. Great. Again, push from the front, where are we? To the back. Here, we grab the thread and we bring it anti-clockwise around the needle, and we pull it taut. So we always pulling and wrapping the thread around the right needle. And then we push with our left finger out, and we're pushing the needle through that hole and out. So we see it from a bit further away. Insert the needle through from the front to the back here, and then we yarn over to the right needle, anti-clockwise, wrap it round, then we push out through the hole and through. Lovely. So we just do this for all the stitches here. And make sure we're kind of bringing it through that gap. But I think the main issue people have when they knit is that they don't know how to take the needle off. But you have to remember, through the gap. So you want to bring it so that you kind of push it down and it comes here through the gap. You don't want to bring it off like this. You need to bring it through that hole. Great. So now we're just going to continue and finish off. So also for this stitch, I forgot to mention, but the thread should always just be on the back. You always want the working thread to be just like kind of there on the back. So what I'm going to do now, bring the needle through to the back, yarn over, and bring the needle out through that hole. Like so. There you go. Great. I'm going to start the new row and show you what to do. It's the same. It's completely the same as the row we just did. Insert the right needle through that left stitch. Grab the working thread. Here we have both, so be careful that you don't use a tail end. Wrap it around anti-clockwise and push the needle and the loop out and over. Again. And here, as you can see, the yarn just kind of defaults, it's just there, like at the back. So, through, bring the working thread anti-clockwise over the back stitch and push the needle out through that gap and take the needle off. Again, yarn over anti-clockwise, push the needle out through that hole. Push the needle out through that hole. Alright, so as we get to the last stitch, the same as the others, needle through the front to the back, like so. Yarn over the back needle anti-clockwise, and then you push it out here through that hole and you bring it off. Great. Now we're going to flip our work over and continue the same this way. You can skip back, slow down the video to watch how you do it again, and I'll meet you after I've done a few. So this is what our piece is looking like after we've done a couple of rows. Super lovely even stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip the work over and we're going to cast off. Now to cast off is quite literally the exact same as purl. However, so I guess not quite literally, but we just do knit stitches instead. So we knit 1, okay, knit 2, and then we bring stitch 1 over stitch 2, knit 1 more, bring stitch 1 over stitch 2, and we just continue this process. And I'm going relatively fast because I explained it last time. So here you go, you just continue knitting stitches and bringing stitch 1 over stitch 2. Okay, and we do this till the end of the row. Great, so now we've got to the last stitch, we just knit it normally, and then we just pull stitch 1 over stitch 2, and then we make this stitch quite large. Then we're going to cut here. The final step to when we knit something is to weave in the ends. So basically to hide these ends, we have to weave them in within here. If we don't, you can't just basically cut here, if not it will all unravel. So what we're going to need is a needle, a darning needle, large enough to let the thread through. So we're going to put that through here, the wide eye hole. Now we are going to weave in. So to weave in, basically we just have to pass the yarn through some stitches. So as you can see here, the shapes are quite, we've got these U's, so you can kind of go, that's what I like to do. Starting here, I go from the, basically it kind of is personal preference. I might just go through the bottom here first. So through a bottom stitch, and then now I might just be going on the bottom row up all these U's. 1, 2, let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to insert the needle through here. Make sure you kind of get that whole stitch. And you pull that through. Great. Now I'm going to do the same here. Going to bring through this other stitch here and through. And make sure you pull it constantly so that the thread kind of doesn't get too tight. And now I'm going to go back here. The next U is this one here. Great. Here, up and through. And now we're going to go up, down this bottom one here, up and through. Now we've gone a few ways this way, but we kind of think of it this way. If the yarn comes undone, it'll come undone in a row. So now we can go the other way. So I'm going to twist my work over and weave the ends in this way. Just go through a few more stitches here. Now I'm going to go through one up here, one, and then this next one here, and then this next U here. So you're just going through a couple of U's like that. Now I can cut that close to where it finished there and just pull that apart. As you can see, that's looking nice and neat. And yeah, so now what I'm going to do, so you can see it blends in quite nicely. And I would do this on the back side. You can also do it along the side here. And yeah, so I'm just going to do these to both sides and then we'll have a look. Perfect. So I've woven in the ends and now this is just going to show you my purl stitch and this is my knit stitch. Now I did a few more rows in this one, but I just wanted to show you that they look the same. Now the difference lies in when you incorporate the stitches together. So on our channel, you should soon see coming some other stitch videos. For instance, if you do one side knit stitch, one side purl stitch, you'll have a nice different look. But these are just two very simple stitches that you should learn before you learn any other stitch. So here you go.
So thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for more knitting tutorials where you can incorporate these skills to make a larger project. So thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye!